Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Megan here, the Healing Foods Coach. Thank you all for your ongoing support and encouragement, for subscribing and leaving your amazing comments as you do. Just a quick reminder before we jump into today's video and topic, if you are looking for one-to-one coaching support, you can book sessions with me on my website, www.healingfoodscoach.com. And now let's get jumping into today's video and topic. Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for sitting through and waiting to get through the introduction there before we start today's topic, which I have named Tips to Avoid Temptation. Now, these don't necessarily work for everyone, and some of them you might already be doing. Some of this may not even apply because perhaps you're not struggling with being tempted while you transition or carry on living a lifestyle where you're following a carnivore or carnivorous diet. But these are some things I've had to learn through trial and some error. And so I thought I'd share them with you guys. So first of all, when I'm talking about temptation, I'm not necessarily referring to the processed sugary junk food, although that can also be included. Because even though we become fat adapted, sometimes we have those moments. Maybe we're feeling particularly stressed. Maybe we have an event where we feel like we simply have to have something that we know is not helpful and not good for us. I mean, that's truly bad. That really is junk food. And we feel like we can't fight that temptation. So some of this may help you in those moments. But I'm thinking more, we've gotten rid of the processed sugars, we've gotten rid of the seed oils, we've gotten rid of the packaged junk food, but maybe we're tempted to eat the things that aren't necessarily deemed as bad, but certainly don't help us. Okay, so for an example, when I was early on in this way of eating, following a carnivorous diet, one of the things I did, or one of the things I didn't do, was eat enough fat in order to feel satiated. So what could often happen for me is as much as I was allowing myself to eat things like bacon and eggs and sausages and all the meats, which is great, by the way, I was doing that. But I think because I had dampened my hunger signals for so long, I wasn't allowing myself to feel true hunger. So I was stopping myself from eating more, convincing myself that I was satisfied, when in reality, that wasn't always the case. And so how that came out in my example was, if we were at a restaurant and we'd order some food to eat, and I might have been ravenous, and an entire plate of doner kebab meat, or 2 extra large burger patties, or a really big steak might have been absolutely what I needed to feel satiated, but I would typically order half the amount. Again, going by the years of a restrictive mindset, and although I was eating meat with the associated fats, I was still many times including leaner proteins as well, which, by the way, I still do, but I make sure to cook it and eat it with lots of saturated fat, so lots of butter in my case. Okay, but I didn't quite get that tweaked to the level I have now when I first began. So we would go to a restaurant and I might order a burger off the menu. So it would often be a 6-ounce burger patty, and maybe it would have bacon and cheese and a fried egg on it, which is all amazing, and it all tasted great. However, I either wasn't eating slowly enough to get the satiety signals going to the brain. So that was one issue, is I wasn't taking my time. I was eating far too quickly, and therefore not allowing myself to feel full. But I also came to later realize that most of the time, most burger patties are typically made with 10% fatty beef or less. Okay, so it's either lean or extra lean beef. And if you're someone like me who desperately needs the higher levels of fat for hormone repair and rebalancing, that was not doing me any favors at that point. Now, not to say that those things are bad. Of course, they're great. They're fantastic. However, in my particular situation, in order to have the optimal amount of healing and to get my leptin signals and my ghrelin signals functioning properly, I needed to have more fat in my diet than what I was consuming. And so I would eat the patty very often far too quickly, and I would still be feeling hungry. Now, I had spent years lying to myself, saying, no, 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 I'm not hungry. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I can ignore this feeling. And I was still drinking regular caffeine, which is an appetite suppressant. Okay. So I was having this with coffee. So I was able to convince myself that even though I was under eating, I was not getting enough to truly feel satiated. I was convinced that I was okay because I was drinking coffee as well. And what would happen oftentimes is if we were out as a family, and at that time I was the only one following a carnivorous way of eating. Okay. Hubby and sons at that point were still on a standard Western diet, a lot of sugary processed things at that time. And so what would happen, I mean, they were supportive, right? But they weren't doing what I was doing. And so it became very easy for me to simply eat what I thought I should, drink a lot of coffee, and convince myself that I was okay. And it did work for a while. But what I found would happen is if we were all out together and we were having a meal, I could easily leave off, say, the bun. I would put it to the side and it wouldn't really bother me and it would all be fine. But I would still be feeling hungry, and I would start picking away at the lettuce or the cucumber that came with the burger. If in the early days I was embarrassed to ask for no sides, I didn't want to be a burden or cause any issues for the wait staff, although to be fair, it wouldn't have been a problem because that's the whole, they're there for that purpose, to take an order. So instead of just feeling good about, hey, I know I want no sides at all, just the meat or the animal products, that's it. I didn't have that confidence in the beginning. So I often had to put the bun aside, pick off the lettuce, tomato, the onions, the pickles, whatever it was. But if it was still on my plate and I was still feeling hungry, I would eat some of the lettuce and I would eat the pickle. And for many people who have no gut issues or problems with plant material, that's not a problem. These are low carb items. But because of how bad my IBS could get, and knowing that it would make me flare up, I shouldn't have had it, but I did because I was still hungry. And honestly, having a bit of the burger juice, the meat juice on those things made it taste even better. Okay. And so I would sit there and I would pick at the lettuce or the pickle or the cucumber, whatever happened to be on my plate that I knew was going to be low carb and that I could maybe get away with having. But there were times when after I ate the lettuce or I had the pickle, there'd be fries right there on the plate. And I didn't always have the strength to say no. I would tell myself, I'm just going to have one or two of them. And I remember once sitting, having dinner with my husband and with our sons at some point during COVID when we were actually allowed to go to restaurants with certain restrictions. And I remember I finished the patty because I was so hungry that I ate really fast. And it was all done, but I was still hungry. Okay, so my hormones, my ability to recognize hunger and satiety were still way out of whack. And I felt like I was still hungry. And I wasn't going to order more because I thought, oh, that's too much food. So I started to pick at the fries. And I had put through a handful of fries when my husband noticed what was happening. And thankfully he said, babe, what are you doing? You're counteracting all the benefits you've had. And this was around the end of August. So I'd been on a carnivorous diet for a month and a half, almost 2 months by that point. And I'd already lost 30 pounds or so, 30, 40 pounds. And so I was making progress. And he pointed out to me, babe, why would you eat those things? You know, you're going to feel terrible. You've said it before and you made so much progress. Why would you go back? And he was right. Okay, so the first thing, if I may, that I would like to suggest as a tip is, for one thing, eat slowly. Whether you're in a restaurant, whether you're at home, eat slowly, right? Don't rush your meals, because the faster we eat, the less time our brains get to recognize our hunger and satiety signals. And so when we eat super fast and we don't take time to enjoy the food, when we're not, allowing our stomachs to fill and get those leptin signals to the brain, we are going to be overeating long before our brains get the signal from the stomach, oh, hey, I'm full now. Okay, so we have to give ourselves time to recognize that feeling of satiety is the first thing. So when you're at a meal, whether you're at home, whether you're in a restaurant, participate in the conversation, speak to the people you're with. I mean, truly, it's great. We get together, we share a meal, but the point is not just the food. It's, I would hope, the conversation, catching up with people maybe at the end of the day. That kind of time spent together is amazing and it's important, right? And so I think we need to make sure we're taking time to converse. Put your cutlery down in between your mouthful, because it'll force you to slow down. Sip at some water or whatever you have, whatever you're drinking at that point. Sip at your drink, because it slows you down, gives your brain a chance to get the signals from your leptin hormones. Hey, stomach is full, we can slow down. And when we do that and we start recognize satiety and also hunger, it's amazing. All of a sudden, you'll suddenly realize you don't need this massive volume of food eaten super quickly. You can eat much slower, enjoy what you're having, but also you start to realize that you will often find you feel satiated and full even before you finish what's on your plate. So we're not scrambling to clean what's on our plate. We're slowing down, we're eating because we're satiated. And you may have many times where you have food left over and all you do is save it for later, have it at another point, right? As opposed to rushing through everything. So that's my first big tip, is eat slowly and take your time. Take time to converse with others, drink water or something in between, slow down and enjoy your food. That's the first thing I would suggest. The other tip I would have for you is make sure you're getting plenty of fat. Okay. And obviously there's a couple of reasons, but the biggest reason is because fat is what's satiating. And it's probably why so many women in particular have to go on a high fat carnivorous diet, because we spent years being low fat or no fat out of fear that eating fat is what's going to make us fat. And that's not the case. Okay. Eating the processed junk, eating all the high amounts of carbohydrates, that makes us fat, because whatever we can't use or store in our muscles and liver as glycogen, that gets converted to fat, and that stays on the body, it seems, forever. Okay, as long as we are continuing to eat carbohydrates. So it's not the saturated fats that make us fat. So when you up your fat intake, you will also feel satiated. It gives you a satisfied feeling of fullness for far longer than a carbohydrates ever will or ever can. And that was the other thing I realized, is that I have to include plenty of good saturated fats when I'm eating in order to feel satiated and to give me the energy I need for whatever comes up over the next 4 to 6 hours, sometimes longer, depending on what I've eaten, how hungry I feel, and how much fat I include. When I'm eating leaner proteins like chicken or, say, diced up ham, sometimes sausages, and I put that together with egg yolks, there is fat there. But if I don't include lots and lots of butter, I find that I'm not as satiated. It's the extra fat of, say, the butter that helps, okay, especially for poultry, because it is a very lean animal meat, right? Which is why when I do have ground beef or minced beef, as we call it here, it's always at least 20% fat. And then egg yolks and whatever else I might throw in there. But that's what works for me. And so not only does it help me feel satiated and full, but I need that fat because I had a thyroid that was underactive for a very long time, which is now functioning, but to keep it humming at optimal capacity requires having all the necessary hormones. How do we make hormones? Hormones are made from the cholesterol that we get from our dietary fat sources. So we need loads of fat because that's going to help us have healthy hormones, balanced hormones, and that's going to help run everything in our systems effectively. As I've shared in many other videos, one of the key things that is driven by hormone production is our thyroid. And that then controls things like metabolism and our sex hormones and the different parts of the endocrine system. And so all of it kind of relies on another to function. And if we're not getting enough fat, then none of those things will function properly. So make sure you're including plenty of saturated fat, loads and loads of it. The thing about fat is that if you have more than your body's able to use or make use of at that time, it will come out of you. Okay, so if you have far too much fat far too quickly, the excess will get flushed out of your system. So you don't have to worry about that. And fat has such a minimal effect on our blood sugar levels, our blood glucose levels, and therefore such a minimal effect on our insulin that it's almost negligible. The rise that might come. It's so minor. Maybe it's seen in a clinical setting, but in practicality, it's almost non-existent. And trust me, if you want to know more about that, you check out the different videos by Professor Ben Bickman. He is kind of the pro at this, but it's true. And so you can eat lots of fat, and it has very little, if any, effect on our blood glucose and therefore our insulin levels. And that's brilliant. Why? Because it's an excellent source of energy, lasts a long time, keeps us feeling satiated, and it kind of helps lubricate the system, if you will, in order to start burning fat. See, once the body recognizes that it's got a continuous supply of good fat coming into it, it's willing to get rid of the stuff that's stored. Okay, that's a summary, right? There's obviously a lot more specific scientific explanation that goes into that, but essentially that's what happens. And so when we start to increase our saturated fats, tells the body, hey, we don't need to worry about hanging on to the stuff that's here. There's regular fats coming in. We don't have to worry about this. And it's then willing to start giving up the fat that's been stored in our adipose tissues, which is a beautiful thing. So what I recommend, if you are, say, at a restaurant, whether you're doing a drive-through takeaway, like a fast food place, or you're in a sit-down restaurant, when you order your meal, whatever it is you decide to order, whether it's some sort of steak, whether it's some kind of beef, whether it's chicken, whether it's fish or pork of some description, everything comes with some kind of a side on the side dish as an option. Now, if you're one of my my fellow fighters out there in this carnivore space, fighting for good health, and you have decided to include some low carb vegetables in your diet, awesome. When it comes to picking sides, ask for the low carb side. So onions, mushrooms, broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, that type of thing. Fantastic. I would suggest that you ask them if they can just provide it with a butter sauce. Here in the UK, every other sauce, it seems, comes with wine in it. Okay. And of course, wine is made from fermented fruit. It's high in sugars. And so you probably want to avoid those types of sauces whenever possible, just to keep your blood glucose levels at a nice, good level without spiking that and causing a spike in your insulin. Just a suggestion. But yeah, I would suggest you ask them if they can please just serve it with butter. Again, they're there to cater to your requests. So if they can make exceptions for people with severe food allergies, then they can certainly do that for you as well. Okay. If you're going to go, if you're somebody who does not want to include any vegetables, low carb or otherwise, right? That's fine too. My recommendation is when you go out to eat, simply ask for the meat. Just tell them clearly, just say, hey, I don't want the fries. I don't want salad. Now, they don't know what to do with that because they all want to put a little something on the side and make it look pretty. Okay, so it's up to you whether you want to fight that or not. I don't worry about what other people think anymore. I don't. I used to. I don't. I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat it. It's just going to get wasted. Please put nothing on my plate other than the meat and whatever I might have asked to go with it. So again, at the time, it could have been a fried egg. Maybe it came with some bacon and cheese. Fine. If that is something you don't feel like you can do because you feel like you're putting out the weight stuff, fair enough, I get it. Just let them know, hey, no bun, please. And if anything, ask them just to include a side salad and skip the fries. Because if it's not there, it's not a temptation, right? And when you're getting your own grocery shopping done, as long as you don't buy the stuff that causes you temptation, then it's not in the house, and therefore you don't have to worry about it, right? So this is more so for when you are out, eating out, okay, or having takeout food. Now, I get it when you are having food on the go, like from a fast food place. It is a lot more challenging. It's not impossible, but it's more challenging to say order the burger and just handle the patties without the bun, because they're hot and it's a little bit more messy. So it depends on if you're willing to pull into a parking spot, and I've done this, and I have no shame about it. If we've ever driven through, we're coming back, say, from a day trip to London, or we're heading somewhere and we need to stop for drive through, takeaway, whatever, I'll order the burger. I will allow them to put it in, like say McDonald's, I'll allow them to put it in the box with the bun. First thing I do, I open the box, take the bun off, put it in the bag so it can be thrown away later. That's it. And then I wait for it to cool down a bit. Now, I'm not the one driving, so, it's a little easier for me. I don't have to worry about trying to drive and hold hot burger patties. But as a suggestion, if you're in that position, you may want to just pull over for 5 or 10 minutes. Pull the bun off. You can order it however you like. You can order the burgers without the extra sauce. You can order it without the ketchup or the mustard or whatever. You can take off whatever you like. Okay. You can order the burger without the bun. Now, that might give you funny looks, but it can be done. It depends how you want to go from there. But what I find easiest is, because when I've asked for them to not have the bun, it often comes with a bun anyway, so I don't fight that anymore. Take off the bun, separate it, put it in the bag to be gotten rid of later, and then wrap the burger patties, open up the box, put the patties in loose, let it cool down. If you have to, grab a napkin, wrap it around the edge of the patties and hold it that way. You don't need the bun. Just a suggestion, right? Things that can help you. One of the more challenging ones is if we're heading in to London. Let's say we're on our way to church service or an event of some kind, and we're going in the morning, and we stop off and we may get like double egg and sausage McMuffins. Okay. Those are a little bit more challenging to handle just because they are piping hot. So again, open up the packaging, let it cool off, take off the bun, wrap it all up, stuff it in a bag that you have designated for rubbish, so you're not tempted to go back and have it, right? That's what I do. And then I collect everyone else's, paper, whatever garbage is left over from the packaging. So that's just a tip. That's a suggestion. That way you can still eat whilst the car is in motion, but you don't have to worry about, oh, I guess I have to have the bun now, or, oh, I guess I have to have all these toppings. Not at all. So those were the temptations for me. What I found, and hopefully what you'll find as you do this for more time, is that it becomes a lot easier to say no thank you to the temptations. For example, when you're sitting at the restaurant, just order your main dish. Don't even allow them to ask you if you might want dessert, because some people, that's a trigger, especially early on. Just say, hey, maybe let the waitress know, hey, look, this is what I like for the main meal. No, we are not going to want dessert at the table, but I will want a coffee or a beverage of some kind. And that way they know, and that'll help you avoid that temptation later on. But again, if you're taking time to eat slowly and you're eating plenty of good saturated fat, then that shouldn't be a problem. So I hope those tips are helpful. I hope those are things that you guys can put into practice. Let me know how you get on. And I thank you so much for staying through to the end of the video and for your attention throughout this whole time. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.